Hello and welcome back to the ARK of E podcast. My name is Noah, and this week I am joined once again by our man in Texas, uh, musician, uh, writer, podcaster extraordinaire, now employee of the National Public Radio Corporation. Is that right? How do I refer? He works for NPR, people. His name is Nathan Stevens, and now you can tell me. Does that sound right? The National Public Radio Corporation?
I think it's
Organization?
Organization, because I think we're also split up by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which we're technically under.
Okay. Yes.
But I'll we can make it even more flowery and put on extra adjectives
I was trying to put on as many titles as possible. You know him, you love him. Nathan Stevens is back with us, and yeah, we're our go-to man for music in the year 2023, and we're keeping that going. So, once again, you've been on more adventures in Texas. You have a festival to tell everybody about. Very excited to hear what went down there. Turn us on to some new people we should check out, and then we're gonna add to the pot, add to the list, the ever-growing list of the best of 2023. So we're going to kind of look at where things are sitting for us midway through the year, and then maybe we'll close out with some new singles or whatever else we've been listening to lately that people can check out. There will be a companion Spotify playlist. There'll be a link in the show notes. Check that out, and I'll also be posting it on our social media, so look for it there. That is all of the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Now, experimental metal? Is that what this was?
Experimental metal rap. Oblivion Access is a festival that's happened for 2 years now. It used to be Austin Terror Fest, which was purely a metal kind of thing. Oblivion Access, for those who don't know, is named after Lil Ugly Mane album, the rapper Lil Ugly Mane. So there's more going on for this sort of mixture of music than there was at Austin Terror Fest, as much as I loved Terror Fest. I went last year for a couple of nights, had a great time. This year, if you read any coverage about it, the first thing you will hear is the heat, how absolutely vicious it was over this last week, and has been for about a week and a half now as of this recording in Austin. We got a heat dome, and the heat index, which is the combination of actual temperature and humidity, has been hitting about 114 most days.
That's rough, man.
So everything should come with the caveat of I missed a bunch of midday shows because fuck that.
Yeah. Also, all of these opinions are lightly influenced by sun poisoning, I believe. So,
yes.
So keep that in mind. This may not be reflective of your average normal weather experience. Sorry, continue.
No, absolutely not your average normal weather experience. Absolutely brutal. Climate change is hitting Texas hard, I got to tell you. But things started off on Thursday night, went through Sunday. I definitely didn't see as many groups as I wanted to, just due to like literal safety concerns. And in the case of a venue that will remain unnamed, they didn't have AC, and the water that they had was in a cooler that was hot. And I was there at 1 a.m. So just vicious heat and poor planning. I will say that things started a little slowly, and I think that was partially because the venues were getting used to the heat, as were the various artists and the crowd itself. I saw one poor kid faint during one of the first sets. Those sorts of things. I saw a local band called Deep Cross, who have mellowed out in the 4 years I've seen them, but they kind of do a very heavy but dreamy synthy kind of thing. Two guitarists, one screamed vocals, one clean vocals. I'm going to pause very quickly to put out my cat because he's yelling at me.
No worries. Can I get that name one more time so I can add it to the list?
Deep Cross.
Deep Cross. All right. I will vamp. We're looking up Deep Cross on Spotify currently. Go throw them a follow. They got about 422 monthly listeners. Latest release is called Royal Water, which just dropped back in March. Little 5-song EP. So go check that out. We'll be adding. Do you have a particular track you want to shout out?
No, I think I just want to listen to the new one again because again, when I first saw them, they were much more into like drone metal sort of stuff, and they've
Hmm.
a little bit more Deftones influence, Hawkwind influence, stuff like
Okay.
that, which was appreciated. They were great. That was the first band that I think really caught my attention, uh, and played through the heat waves in a way that actually, got me paying attention. The next day, I saw Little Ugly Mane. He was not as enthralling as the first time I saw him, but the first time I saw him, he brought a giant rip-off animatronic Chuck E. Cheese toy to be his backing band. I don't think anything is ever going to top that. So this one was just more of a straight up rap set, and he
Okay.
sounds great. He had some pretty disturbing Instagram posts recently about where he was mental health wise. I really thought he was going to drop out, but he ended up not dropping out. I don't know if that's to his benefit, credit, or whatever, or if he should have taken care of himself. But he was fantastic live, really got the crowd going. It was the first really good rap show I saw at, this thing, which is becoming more and more rap related, but is not completely there yet.
Gotcha.
It's still a lot of experimental stuff. And admittedly, Little Ugly Mane and his various other personas do make a lot of music that is not rap related as well. We had Thunder and Lightning come through, which delayed my ability to see Chat Pile, which made me sad. And basically, because of the delay stuff, I ended up seeing a band called Mama Leak instead, who are an anonymous quartet that plays experimental rock with some jazz influences,
Okay.
and one of the angriest frontmen I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
Absolutely no crowd presence between songs, just silence, and then ripping into another. I don't know. Sounds a little bit like Tom Waits conducting a metal band. It
I
was
don't know.
fantastic.
Okay. I didn't know where you took me on a journey with that one. I didn't know if
Yeah,
the
they were
payoff
they
was
were
okay.
wild.
Okay.
I had such a good time seeing them. I'd listened to a little bit of their previous solo material, but the live stuff kind of unlocked it. Really enjoyed it. Um, I then saw kind of more of a hip hop set. I saw Clams Casino, um, who was good, but kind of just played and like live remixed a little bit of the songs that I was already expecting him to play from ASAP Rocky, from Little B,
Hmm.
from Vince Staples. It was cool, but like nothing super to write home about, especially because experimental rap group Clipping played after them. Clipping, who's frontmanned by David Diggs of Hamilton fame.
Okay.
And what
Okay.
he does in his spare time is some of the most bugged out, terrifying noise rap you'll ever hear. Like this is his passion, I guess. Um, and the two producers that are with him did do live remixes of songs that made it so that every song kind of flowed into the next one rather than having to take breaks. They were also hilarious because they made a joke about motherfuckers are up here on stage being like 40. We are not doing the run off stage for the encore run back on. It's too hot.
Uh-huh.
Which I appreciated.
Yes.
Uh, that was fantastic. And then I think the last two that I saw really were my absolute peak of kind of what I usually think of when I think of Oblivion Access, which is more experimental and metal stuff. I saw Sludge Titans from Baton Rouge, Thou. Maybe my favorite metal band of the last 10 or 15 years. I've managed to interview them before. Super delightful people. But while playing at the venue that had no AC at 1 in the morning, it became this kind of swampy, hallucinatory nonsense. It was amazing. The lead singer at one point was just on the edge of the stage watching a mosh happen for about 3 minutes, just kind of bobbing his head back and forth, staring into the void. And that was like the whole show. It was incredibly intense, incredibly loud, incredibly low. But me and my friend Andrew, who went with me, we looked at each other afterwards and almost simultaneously said, "Is Thou the greatest American rock band?" Um,
Okay.
that was just such an incredible time. All of their records, I would suggest at least checking out. Their most recent collaborative record with Emma Ruth Rundle, I think, might be their most accessible point. It was fantastic. And then the last person I saw is someone I think I've mentioned on every time I've been on here because I'm such a huge fan of his. I saw Tim Hecker, ambient
Awesome.
and drone extraordinaire, in a church, massive Presbyterian church in downtown Austin.
Awesome.
He filled the room with smoke, and it was a religious experience. He didn't close, he didn't play any of his new stuff off of No Highs until the very, very end. And I thought it was one of the most ascendant live music experiences I've had. If you have the chance to see Tim above everybody I listed, especially because he just doesn't tour that often, go see him. He's really amped up his ability. It sounds funny, amped up his ability with restraint, because I've heard about shows in the past that have just been overwhelming drones for an hour. This one had a lot more pauses, more patience, and I think it all built to a final climax that was just enthralling. Too hot. Too hot is my main takeaway from
Okay.
Oblivion Access. Uh,
You definitely saved the best for last. I'm so jealous of the whole idea of that experience of seeing Hecker live. That would be amazing. In a church, man.
yeah,
So
in a
cool.
church too.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, that was my last thing. My friend Andrew went on to see a couple of bands. He recommended he saw metal bands Pallbearer, Godflesh, and Yob. He said Yob was the best of the bunch. Very stonerific, low, sludgy sort of trio. I believe out of my former college town, Eugene, Oregon.
Nice.
He said it was a fantastic way to close things. He was less affected by the heat than I was, despite the fact he's from Milwaukee. I think I just
Okay.
didn't hydrate enough. Um,
Gotta hydrate,
so
man. Gotta hydrate.
yeah, oh man, we were double fisting waters the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say in conclusion, Oblivion Access has really carried on the torch from Terrorfest and transformed itself into its own weird, mutated, wonderful thing. But as climate change makes outdoor festivals more and more difficult, perhaps they should rethink it being in June in Texas.
Yes. Maybe move it to the winter. That could be cool. A fun little pre-Christmas, pre-holiday treat. Uh, I I guess I have a live experience to share. A
Woo!
pretty
Live
cool
shows,
venue.
yes.
We never really talked about it other than a few brief texts, but I saw the aforementioned on our I think our previous chat, Fever Ray, and good time to go ahead and talk about it. So I can go ahead and say nothing has changed for me. It's still my number one favorite record of the year, and nothing's gonna top it because it's a fucking masterpiece. But they just absolutely killed it. It was at the Salt Shed, which is a relatively new venue in Chicago. It's a converted Morton salt factory. So they have like a half indoor, half, they basically split time between their indoor and their outdoor stage. They had just recently renovated the indoors, and it was okay. So opener Christine, I don't have are you familiar with Christine, the drag
Mhm.
terrorist? Yes.
Yes.
So they described it at one point in the midst of their stage banter as this Alien 3 ass Blade Runner motherfucking looking warehouse thing that we're in right now. It was the closest I've been to like an industrial like rave sort of setting. And it was incredible. Uh they put a lot of thought into the construction of this venue. Essentially, if you do have to leave wherever you're set up at, you never ever have to take your eyes off the stage, and you never lose track of the sound because it's mic'd everywhere, including the restrooms and such. And there are flat screens strategically positioned kind of like throughout the venue. So it's basically like if you turn your back from the stage, you could still watch the stage. So it's just perfect flow of people. You could go wherever you wanted to within there. We had general admission tickets, but we ended up on the second tier where there was some seating or whatever, like on the front of a balcony because the stage I wanted to see like the stage setup and the lighting, which was incredible. Set was perfection, like a perfect set list. Even managed to take some tracks from Plunge that made, the album that grabbed me the least of their output. But like Mustn't Hurry live was incendiary, dude. Incredible. Absolutely loved it. all the bangers from Radical Romantics were present. Yeah, I it was everything I could have possibly wanted it to be. It totally delivered. It was well worth the trip. Uh, and I got to spend a good bit of time in downtown Chicago this time, which I have not before when I've been up to visit my buddy. Which is also extra satisfying because the Bear season 2 just dropped, and that's actually what I tore myself away from to come record this with you. I'm 3 episodes deep, man, and it's just as good as season 1. My probably my favorite show on television at the moment. Uh,
What was Fever Ray's stage setup like? I don't know what sort of
very
band they toured with.
very minimalist, uh, live percussion, and there was definitely probably some synthesizers and computers being worked on by people who were not necessarily always visible. I know they were there at certain points, but it's essentially it's Karen and two dancers, flanked by two dancers, and that's pretty much it's very minimalist, but in the best way. I almost want to send you some. Oh, none of my pictures are worth it, but the tour has looked kind of consistent throughout. Uh, and yeah, and they're in the. I mean, you've seen the videos. The more the like the one who's getting the lap dance in the Candy video, that character, the more male of the two personas, I guess you would say. Uh, yeah, that's how they're dressed for the majority of the set. There is one little costume change before they get into the finale, but nothing too drastic. It was and as far as the choreography and the dancing throughout was so like um again precise and minimalist where it was like I'm not gonna do these huge like it doesn't have to be this intense constant thing. It's like it can just be captivating and very direct and like I it was great, man. It was a joy. It was my one of my favorite shows I've ever been to. And yeah, great way to cap off the whole experience of that album and that record from this year. So yeah, if you
We
have
had
the
some good.
opportunity, which they're out of the U.S. now. I think that was it. It was 5 dates, and that was that. So probably won't ever that will never happen again. I don't think it would be cool if
I,
it does, but I don't think I'll ever have the opportunity to see Fever Ray again. But
this is I'm realizing we're having both bucket list checkoffs, but very experimental bucket list checkoffs. I
yes,
got
I don't.
Tucker and you got Fever Ray.
Yes. And I would gladly I would swap both of those, but I also wish we could have gone to both of those shows together. I feel like that would have been a pretty cool time too.
Come
So
out to Oblivion Access. Don't die of heat stroke.
yeah, that definitely sounds like maybe a little more my speed instead of South by. But we'll see. We'll see. I definitely want to I gotta get out there at some point. Okay. Any any other thoughts? Any other things before we kind of
I
dial into
think
some of the other best of this year?
no, I really think those are the main things because I the only other show I was going to mention is going to be wrapped up in one of the albums that I'm going to bring up. I'm pretty like you said earlier before we were fully talking, I think we got an overlap on one of our albums. So I'm thinking if we're going into that, I can do the two albums that I don't think overlap, and then we can do a little segue thing.
Sounds good. All right, well, kick us off. What else do people need to give a shot before they finalize their top tens later this
So,
year?
yeah, I'm trying not to bang on about the same records that I talked about the last couple of times we've been on here. So these are additions from the last 3 or 4 months, really. This one, I think, if you are connected in the indie world or if you're connected in the rap world, you will be aware of it. It's the new Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel record, Maps. Billy Woods is an underground record or rapper who runs his own record label called Backwoods Studios. He's become kind of famous or infamous for hiding his face at all times. He's got a little bit of an MF Doom thing going on. I
Okay.
have loved him for over a decade now. His work with Elucid, which is under the name Arm& Hammer, really caught me about 5 or 6 years ago. And his entire catalog is just really interesting. He touches rap like a screenwriter would. He just has these miniature plays, these exacto knife moments that he just cuts out of pictures and scripts and sudden moments in his life. His last two full lengths ago, a record called Aethiopes was tied for my record of the year last year. He's been hyper prolific. His new one with Kenny Siegel is, I think, the most accessible he's been at. It's got a consistent theme, which is about travel and touring. He's funnier than he usually is. He's a little bit more vulnerable than usual, and he's got some amazing guest rappers on here.
I see three features on here that I'm like there's well, there's only four features total, I
Yeah.
think. But you got Danny Brown on here, one of my absolute favorites. Sam Herring from Future Islands, probably my favorite like male pop vocalist alive. And then Aesop Rock on here as
Oh
well.
yeah. That should tell you the
Incredible.
pedigree.
That I'm gonna throw this on very quickly. So did you shout out FaceTime earlier this year? Was that a single?
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay.
was a
I
single
was
I
gonna
was
say,
interested in.
I didn't
Yeah.
think this was I got excited that it was a track I hadn't heard yet from this one, but no. Okay, so this is the whole record. Okay. I gotta check this out. So this dropped in May. Okay.
And I saw Woods right before the record dropped. He didn't play anything off of it, but it was a fantastic live show. He's a lot more engaging than I thought he would be, considering his mysterious persona. Like, he was funny,
Hmm.
and just chatty with the crowd and all that stuff, and just really excellent live. Again, if you're looking for a way into his discography, which is both vast and kind of thorny in some ways, I really think there is no better record than this one to start. I think the guests that you pointed out are a perfect starting point and a good hook into it. Danny Brown, the way that I describe his voice is, if you've ever seen Fern Gully, where Tim Curry's like evil sludge monster is there, Danny Brown is like the modern version of that. That's what he sounds like. He
I,
sounds like
I need to go back
pollution.
and watch Fern Gully because it's been a bit, but yes, I adore whenever Danny Brown features on other people's records, and it just it's literally just like throwing dynamite in the middle of a track where it's just like, okay, and now it's something completely different. Now it's
Yes.
gonna like now I'm gonna do my thing. Um he did a whole split with JPEG Mafia earlier this
Hmm.
year, which I have not listened to, didn't even realize it came out, and then that popped up. I'm not super well informed on JPEG Mafia. They've featured on some stuff that I'm aware of, but I do love Danny Brown, so I need to give that record a spin. That one
Yeah.
was not on my radar at all. Uh,
Scaring the hose.
is that
Yes.
what it's called?
It's called Scaring the Hose.
Scaring the hose. Hell yeah.
Maps by Billy Woods is weirdly not host Scaring music. I think it's able
Okay.
to be kind of chill. So I would say so far probably my rap record of the year.
All right. I got it. Yes, I have to give this one a spin. Uh, I guess I'll talk about my current rap record of the year. It's very fresh and new
Yeah.
to me. I don't know if this one's on your list. It's about a week old. It's called Michael by Killer Mike. Uh,
Yes.
his first solo record since rap music, the incredible rap music. Uh, and I mean, I've been amped on it because he has been promoting the hell out of this record on his social media from the get-go. And as he kind of like slowly would drip out like, oh, guess who's on here? I got more and more excited. But let me pull up the track list. Anytime somebody gets an Andre 3000 feature on a record these days, it's automatically usually my favorite track. So yes, Scientists and Engineers, which also has Future on there as well. Uh great track. Before it dropped, I think we got the singles. We got Don't Let the Devil, which has LP from Run the Jewels on there with him. And I think Motherless also came out as a single. But it's obviously a very personal record. He's talked a lot about how the reason it was time to make a solo record and something that was specifically not a Run the Jewels record is like I have these very specific things I want to say and focus on, and maybe some like personal stories and shit I haven't gotten off my chest yet. This not that it not that we need to compare, but you could look at this as like it's a little more on the Mr. Morale, Big Steppers sort of side of things, where it's, it's a little bit like I've done the brash bravado and like the, it's Run the Jewels is essentially it's two incredible show off artists just showing the fuck off over and over again, and it's so enjoyable and entertaining. And then they slip in a little, they slip in the message or whatever. But his solo stuff has always been a little more message forward and first. But this one feels like that veneer of like I've got to be the voice of all of this stuff. I've got to like basically re-educate people about Reagan, et cetera, et cetera. This gets down to more of a granular level of like, this is me as a person. These are some of my flaws, stuff I'm still working on, stuff I'm not proud of, et cetera. There's no there's no artifice. Not that again, I think of them as very like real down to earth guys, but there's a certain amount of like brash bravado that comes with the Run the Jewels experience. It's meant to be fun first and foremost and like energetic and in your face. But yeah, the production is incredible. A lot of like it just feels like a classic hip hop record in a lot of ways. Very traditional, very old school, and very much a specifically not just a Southern rap record, but an Atlanta rap record with a giant ATL stamped on it. I don't know. It's very intentionally like, we know where we're from kind of thing. I love it. I've only been through about two full spends on it, but yeah, right now I could kind of say by default, but right now it's my rap record of the year. Mainly because we did talk about Let's Start From Here, the Lil Yachty record from earlier this year, which I don't know that I strictly identify as a rap record. It's more,
No, I think that's a psych rock record.
yeah, psychedelic funk rock, whatever we want to call it. But so I kind of separate that one out. So for right now, Michael is my number one, but I have got to give the Billy Woods record a shot immediately.
And I think this is the first time it would not even disagree because I haven't listened to Michael yet. I have found Killer Mike to become more and more grating over the last couple of years.
As a personality or as an artist
As a
or
rapper
both?
and a personality.
Okay,
Yes.
fair enough.
But the thing is that's one of the things when you come into a new record that you know is going to be very, very personal. And you're like, I don't know about this person's like persona, personality, how they're coming across, how I'm going to meet with it. But the way you're describing it, I think sounds more up my alley than I thought it would be. I thought I was going to skip this one.
And
So
I won't say that like it all 100% like fires on all cylinders for me. Uh I mean, it's got its peaks and valleys, but overall, and I guess I would say, you know, I've maybe not soured on him as much. I know there's been some back and forth over, and I think anytime you know make yourself that dude who is an authority figure, so to speak, on issues, etc., that you invite a lot of that shit in. So
yeah.
I grant you that. Are you a little more down on the fourth RTJ record, or just Run the Jewels in general, like as a
Yeah.
project?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I think looking back on it, I remember making, this is a very silly like way to kind of realize it, but I was making like a Run the Jewels mix, which was like, oh, it's my favorite songs off of each album without the filler. And I realized as it went on, I was cutting out more and more songs. Um, and I think that the highlights from Run the Jewels 3 and 4 in particular are some of the best they've ever had. Kill Your Masters in particular from Run the Jewels 3 and from 4 Yankee and the Brave. I think for Firing Squad. I think they're still almost undefeated in like album openings and closings. Like they're
Hmm.
just really incredible at that. But there was just more and more stuff that after the first or second or third listen, I would just skip, or I couldn't quite remember the chorus, or you know what I mean? It just kind of faded a little bit. And I think part of that was how quickly they were producing stuff over that time period and how much I don't want to really say a formula because they're, especially LP, is such a creative when it comes to beats. But the thing is, the same two dudes for 4 albums doing, the thing is, the only group that's ever been able to do that in any way is probably Outcast,
Yes.
consistently like reinvention of themselves. And even then they were sputtering towards the end with Idlewind and parts of the speaker box Love Below. So, I don't really blame them for that, but I definitely was less and less enamored with 3 and 4 as time went on, and I kept coming back to 1 and 2 instead. I think I wouldn't even say soured on Run the Jewels themselves. I think it's just gone from, oh, they're the best rap duo since Outkast, which what it felt like in the moment, to like, hey, I don't really go back to 3. Hey, I don't go back to 4.
Well, 3 was like the one that cemented it for me, and
Mm-hmm.
probably the one that obviously I think is kind of the most accessible, and was right when they started to kind of like fully
Oh, yeah.
hit that, like, oh, everybody knows like
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 songs now. Um, and so yeah, I still love 3. My brother and I, we did Rerun the Jewels, a little mini series in the lead up to the election. Uh as a, like, politically active, hey, everybody go vote, but by the way, don't vote for the wrong fucking guy, basically, sort of mini series. And yeah, I don't know, we never got any feedback over whether people were like, oh, this is fun, 2 white guys going through all of this material, which was pretty much the preface of every single episode, was like,
Yeah.
just to, just get it out of the way. Our opinions do not matter whatsoever, but we do really like these guys in this group. So, anyways, but in going through them, I agree with you. It was kind of like we had been so in the mindset of like 4 had just come out. It was a big deal at the time. And 3 was kind of where my brother and I bonded over them initially, or whatever. But it was like when we went back through and we went back track by track, it was like, dude, 1 and 2 out of the gate are just like some incredible records that definitely still hold, like, completely hold up. I agree with you though. The track lists get a little lengthier, particularly with 3. And it's like, yeah, you could make your, like, oh, I'd chop out these 4, I'd chop out these 5, and like this is the best of the best. But I feel
I
you.
think
I
that
feel you.
I
I
think
think
that's what's
you
in, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think, given like how you're approaching the other ones, I'm like, I think you'll like Michael more than, yeah,
Mhm.
more than you think you would.
Yeah, I would just say like the compliment to 1 and 2 is that the sequencing I think is flawless. There is no fat on either of those records. And this is the thing we're talking again about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, which has kind of become an interesting record of just like a point of comparison for a lot of hip hop now,
Yeah.
which is you make a messier, more personal, longer record, and it may be more cathartic and the highs may be higher, but the editing often goes out the window.
Oh,
And
for
that's
sure.
what I felt about 3 and 4.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
I'm trying to remember. I think 4 is a little tighter
mm-hmm.
than
Yeah, three's sprawling.
3. Yeah,
Like
3
three's
is definitely the
long.
one where it's like, oh, everybody wanted to come to the party, basically. Like,
Yeah.
we made 2 records everybody loves, so we can get anybody now. And it's, yeah, it's definitely the most star-studded affair. Uh but yeah, give Michael a shot. It's that
Mhm.
is my one honest, like, my one kind of overall bit of criticism is it's a features buffet.
Mm,
Uh and so there's some stuff in the buffet that you're like, hell yeah, I really like that this is here. And then there's other stuff in the buffet that you're like, oh, I don't even have room for this on my plate. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, but to that point, some of the features, I think, kind of surprised me with how he used them, or
Okay.
how they chose to be incorporated, where it's like, oh, I would expect a verse from this person. Instead, they're doing the hook. Okay, that's different. So surprising in that aspect, but I was kind of sitting here, when you actually look at the track list, it's like, this is Killer Mike's Michael, and I think he has 2 tracks that are just him. You know what I'm saying? Where I was
Yeah.
like, as personal as it feels moment to moment, you'll also have like a feature come in, and I'm like, what the fuck is this person talking about? Like, did they get like, did he give him an outline of like, here's the rough theme, or like, here's kind of what we're going for? Because there are moments where you're just like, I don't know where the fuck that came from. Okay. That they didn't get the assignment. That didn't fit the project to me.
Th-
But
This is the
first,
classic problem with almost being too many friends with too many people in the rap world, where it's like,
yeah.
well, I gotta have him, and she's gotta get a
And if
and
this person's on, I can't not have this. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It's
yeah,
like, yeah. But the Andre 3000 verse is,
of course.
just unimpeachable. Every time he shows up, I'm just like, oh, I'm glad that happened. I'm really glad that happened. I do secretly hope that this sounds terrible. Um, but I hope it's like a Prince Vault situation. And like Andre's actually been making like 4 to 5 records a year that nobody's allowed to hear. They're just sitting in a vault somewhere. He's even they've made more Outcast records. Like him and Big Boy, they actually are like really good friends still, and they do hang out all the time. We just don't know about it. And and hopefully 100 years from now, after he's long dead and gone, uh, it'll be like, oh yeah, crack that vault, and all of a sudden you'll be like, oh shit, dude, he was just killing it this whole time. Uh, but yeah, that's my secret hope. Still my favorite MC of all time. My
Oh yeah.
my favorite rapper ever. Period. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
wish he would come back to music full time. But do you, man, keep acting, and whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
I
Whatever
think
makes you satisfied and
there
happy.
was it was in promotion for the Michael record or whatever, but Killer Mike had a thing where he was like, yeah, we hit up Andre, and he's just like, he's off playing a flute somewhere in Japan. And they cut to this footage of like some random tourist in Japan who was just like, Andre. And he's on a street corner looking incredible, of course, like incredible outfit. And he's playing the flute, just chilling somewhere in like Kyoto. I don't even know, dude.
Honestly, if that's the life you're living, though, I
I,
don't begrudge
I'm,
anyone for not
I'm like,
making
you
records.
do whatever you want to do, man. Absolutely. Um,
Um,
did we,
so go ahead.
I'm sorry to get us all so sidetracked. Had Coachella happened when we recorded
I
last?
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Did
Yeah.
we
Did we
did we
I
talk
don't know
about
if
the
we
Frank Ocean of it all?
no, I don't think we talked about Frank Ocean. We can definitely take our
I mean,
tangent here because I think okay, so I was at a small music festival this last weekend as we're recording, right? And I was talking to some people, and it was really interesting to kind of compare and contrast what had happened at Coachella and what Coachella has become as compared to still smaller music festivals, right? And a big part of that was, why are you at Coachella? Because I can tell you why I'm at Oblivion Access. I'm seeing a bunch of artists that you literally never get to see, right?
mhm.
And for a semi-reasonable price, and it's in my town. Coachella, with a couple of exceptions, Frank Ocean being one of them, and we'll get to that. There's so many people in the lineup. It's so out the way. You have to pay so much money to get there that really there's only a certain segment of the population that can go regularly. And it seems more and more like those folks are going to be seen.
Right.
That going to Coachella and seeing Beyonce, going to Coachella and seeing Frank Ocean is, I can say that I did this
Mhm.
rather than the experience in the moment stuff. I saw a video that was going around on Twitter of people filming themselves during the Beyonce concert, and it was like a Beyonce song came up that apparently meant a lot to these folks, and they all started crying immediately. But it was more like I was there for the song, like I
Mhm.
could capture this moment and say I was there as opposed to the people who are not there. And I'm not going to say that I can understand stan culture. It terrifies me. But it feels like Coachella is kind of wrapped up in this, how much are you going to con to see the films? How much is con now like fashion? Who's there, or the Met Gala, stuff like that. And I feel as like a not very fashionable person, feel a little weird about a music festival suddenly becoming very much a fashion you had to be there kind of statement thing.
Right.
And I think that leads into what we're about to talk about with Frank of like deep miscommunication, a lot of discomfort, and people not knowing what they want, including Frank Ocean.
Yeah. Um, Before we get into that,
Yeah.
quick side note. If you want to understand stan culture just a little bit more and you want a fantastic satire of it all, Swarm on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
The first post Atlanta show from Donald Glover and Janine Neighbors. Great show. And they even have a Coachella episode It's great. You should check it out. Very, very good show. Frank Ocean. Um, yeah, I first of all, I thought we were going to be able to see it. That was one big thing. And transitioning off of what you were talking about, all of these big festivals that seem so sought after for such a long time, now it's even bigger money for them because they're selling the rights to Hulu or wherever, and we're getting these live streams and stuff where it's like for a lot of people, my thing is most of the time it's like to actually carve out the time of day where I could go watch whoever on the live stream, it never syncs up. It's like as frustrating as it would probably be to be at the festival. But now that that's an option, I'm like all these years that I wanted to maybe go to like your Bonnaroo's, etc., like those sort of things. It's like now I don't want to, but now is when the access, as far as like, oh, I could just watch them streaming. I could see any of these performances whenever. It's not some shitty like rip from YouTube. It's here now. Um, it's it's kind of almost now like now I don't really want to or care about it. And you have little things like that night, I was like, dude, I'm gonna watch fucking Bjork, and then I'm gonna watch the first live Frank Ocean performance in years. Like, what's he gonna do? I'm so excited. And then they basically no communication from Coachella themselves or from Hulu or YouTube or whatever it was streaming on that yeah, Bjork, that one's not gonna you're not gonna be allowed to see that one. Nope. It's not part of the live stream. It's like, okay, so that's 7 o'clock shot. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna stay up till after midnight or whatever and hopefully catch this Frank Ocean thing. And glad I didn't because it was delayed an extra hour, which would have been even more on my anyways. It was delayed an extra hour, and then what people got again, I think I would have liked to have seen in the moment live as it was happening. But I think they very wisely, I guess, were like, no, this isn't part of the live stream. And this arbitrary, like, but this is just for the people who were there. I was like, okay, fair enough. That's their prerogative. I guess some artists can say, I don't want this out there for public consumption. It's not fully formed, etc. But then the next day, when we started hearing like, hey, so it didn't go so well. Hey, there's some technical difficulties. Hey, people were kind of baffled by the whole experience. Uh, and then the fact that he was supposed to go the next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he had another one scheduled, and then very quietly, just like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. And I was just like, what happened there, dude? And for me, honestly, yeah, people had all their varying opinions. I kind of love it. To me, it plays into the mystique, dude, where I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Like, of course, it couldn't just be like a normal performance that everybody would be like, oh, that was a real crowd pleaser. Like, he's back, cool. And he played like one new song at the end, or like what everybody else was secretly hoping for, like, oh, by the way, new record's out right now. You can go stream it like on my website. I'm not releasing through any major platforms, like some shit like that. That's what we are all hoping for. Uh, but yeah, I don't know, man. Just but to me, again, plays into the mystique of like whenever you want him to do something, he will not do it. And fundamentally, that is like what he always zags. And that's fundamentally what I guess keeps him compelling in my mind, dude. I don't know why I've turned him into like the modern day Bob Dylan of just like, we got to read the tea leaves, man, read between the lines. What's really
Oh,
going on there? I don't know why I've made him into this figure, and I know he probably is like, could give a shit about that aspect of how people view him, but I don't know, man. Again, and I think that's 100% what it is he's just doing exactly what the fuck he wants to do, not on anybody else's schedule or time frame, and he's in his own headspace, and I don't know if we'll ever quite understand what that is.
yeah, I think, the moment itself, what it read to me, and, there's a lot of hearsay, there's a lot of gossip, is that the simplest explanation is Frank Ocean does not like playing live shows, but you can't say no to $4 million for one show.
You got too many people. You've been out of the game for too long. It's like, yeah, you gotta do that.
He he has always struck me as kind of the auteur behind other pop stars that accidentally became big himself. because he wrote songs for so many different people. He was obviously in, Odd Future, all of this stuff, and kind of a mysterious, mercurial person, even in those days. And then I don't, as excellent as Channel Orange is, and as excellent as Blonde is, I don't think, respectively, anybody expected Channel Orange to become this massive phenomena pop hit. And I don't think anyone expected Blonde, even coming off of Channel Orange, to become this kind of art pop masterpiece that is now thought of in the same tones as a Bjork, as even, going further back to a Marvin Gaye or a Prince. And so it's almost like, suffering from success kind of stuff of like, no, I don't want to play live shows. I want to make music when I want to and skate. And that's about it. And you make albums like that and you live in a culture that we do now. There's just, unless you are going to completely disappear off the face of the earth and play flute in Kyoto, that's just not an option, to live in kind of both worlds where you will drop a feature, where you are working on new music, where you will do an occasional live show. People are just going to become absolutely rabid for it, as compared to Andre, where we're kind of like used to it now, that he just like drops by every 2 years for a verse and then disappears.
And admittedly, it took a while because again, there was a huge gap where there was nothing. And then as he would every time like something new would pop up, like for instance, the Channel Orange feature, where I was just like, okay, is he like something happening here? And you'd always, but yeah, it took a little while, but yeah, I think we've been trained at this point where it's like, no, he'll do stuff with his friends and people he respects every once in a while. That's that. Enjoy it when you get one. And I'm like, that's fine. That's great.
I think we're seeing in real time in the social media era an artist attempting to do that with
and we just don't want to let him do it.
But we're in the social media age. At the very least for Andre, by the time Channel Orange came out, we were used to this kind of thing going on. And over the next couple of years, we're like, okay, this is just what he does. Frank is trying to do it in the era of TikTok.
He's also so young. Again, that's the thing I have to remind myself is it's like, imagine you made those 2 records like before you were 30. How old is he now? He's like 30, 34,
something like that.
I mean, I'm like, imagine you make those before you turn 30. That's just, that's like Orson Welles type shit. But anyways, okay. So we never properly talked about it. I thought it was a fascinating entry in the ongoing saga of trying to nail him down, which is part of the fun, is that we never will.
Yeah.
All right. So that's been the Ocean Report for this this episode. Now we were in the midst of a list. Again, to remind everybody, Billy Woods, Maps, and Killer Michael Renders. Michael, hit me with another one.
I've got one that's going to start very left field and people are going to go like, I don't know about this. And then I'm going to reel you in. All right. So the pitch comes second. The description comes first. It is an album called Agatha 2 by the UMO Helsinki Jazz Orchestra. It is original compositions by a Finnish jazz composer with a full ensemble of jazz and string musicians. That may sound a little bit dated or too stately. The thing I'm going to say is when I listened to it, I instantly thought of the jazz you hear in Lupin the Third or Cowboy Bebop. Just with a full orchestra.
Sold immediately.
That's my hook. So, don't go into this thinking this is a very like polished, overly pristine jazz record. It can be polished. The production is excellent, but it is a really rambunctious, playful, whimsical, like there's smooth jazz where you have like a playboy kind of figure listening to it, and then there's smooth jazz where the jazz is telling you to rob a bank. This is that jazz.
Okay, I like that jazz.
This is Ocean's 11. This is Lupin. This is Cowboy Bebop kind of stuff.
Hell yeah. Two of my favorite anime scores, and the score to Ocean's 11, which we've never talked about it, one of my all-time favorite movies, a perfect film in my estimation. Also weirdly the movie I've seen the most. There was about a year and a half period where this is in high school where it was my go to bed movie. So I just watch it on a loop. And so like wherever I fell asleep, I just restart it. So weirdly, probably seen it upwards of 100 times. It's the one movie that I've seen that many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this might really scratch an itch for you. And yeah, I don't know if there's been a lot of excellent jazz this year. I'm not even mentioning the new Mammal Hands record, which is a great mixture of electronic and jazz. The Conic Rose record, which I think I mentioned before, and
Mm-hmm.
another. It's been a very good record year for jazz. I think Agatha too has struck out to me as the most playful and out there jazz record, and not out there in terms of free jazz, but just completely to the beat of its own drummer, which I really appreciate. And I've enjoyed it a tremendous amount. It's just a record to put on late night, not necessarily for sleepy time, but just like feeling confident, feeling, yeah, I like feeling whimsical. So we're talking about Andre 3000. I want
Yeah.
to be on the street playing
Oh
flute.
yeah. Sounds amazing.
So I'm gonna recommend it not just for jazz heads, but for folks who are interested in the scores we just mentioned, because that's the feeling, you know.
Dude, I'm fully on board. I'm very excited for both of these. Um,
So go ahead with yours before we, I believe,
for the yeah,
coalesce.
for the sake of throwing another one in the mix, because I don't think we talked about it with any depth. But a record that I went back to after a little bit of a break. Multitudes by Feist. Have you given
Mhm.
this one a spin?
Only the singles, and I was told by a friend of mine if I ever had the chance, I have to see her live. So I'm waiting to see if she'll have Austin dates sometime in the near future.
I too would love to see her in a solo capacity. I've never been to a Broken Social Scene show either. That is my ideal, is that I get to see a Broken Social Scene show where she is there, and it's all of my faves all actually there at one time would be cool. But yeah, no, so I this was a weird thing where the singles, she had released so many of them that when I got to them, I thought it was an EP. I
Yeah.
did not think we were getting a full record. So I listened to it as an EP, essentially, those first like four or five singles. And I thought that was it. And then a couple weeks go by and all of a sudden it pops again. Am I recommended? And I'm like, wait, what the heck?
Mhm.
Because weirdly, with the sequencing of where she got like what had come out, it was kind of like the three, it's not a particularly segmented record, but it's like I got the vibes of all of the whole thing, but I just was like, oh, it's just shrunk down. Uh so yeah, I really, she's one of my favorite female vocalists, like period. Um I don't know that anything's ever gotten quite to the heights of the Reminder, but
Mhm.
it's like that's one of those double-edged sword records because it's like kind of hate that everybody loves her now and like it was a special,
Don't be
I
that
no,
guy.
that's no. That's I'm talking about my mentality at the time. At the time, maybe there was a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that, and then you have to sit there and go like, well, yeah, the reason that it like broke through and became like what it became is because it's fucking like borderline perfect record. It's like it's the culmination of everything she had done up until that point. And yeah, I don't know if we're ever gonna fully hit those high highs of like, I don't know, the perfect like sad pop song, which she for a while she did better than just about anybody.
Mhm.
Um, but Multitudes has a lot of like just great fucking songwriting on it. Yeah. So that's my soft pick for like, hey, let's not forget this one came out this year,
Mhm.
even though I thought it was an EP because I'm an idiot and I didn't pay enough attention. But yeah, so Multitudes by Feist. I think we're in agreement. So you just go off, King. Tell everybody
Yeah.
about this record, this next one we're about to
Uh,
talk about, which I think, I mean, I for me it's number two, because
mhm.
again, nothing can trounce Fever Rate, but it was one of those like first time through, I was like, oh, that was what a wallop. But yeah, tell people about Sus Dog, dude.
Yeah. So this one was definitely coming out of left field.
I'm
Not
sorry. It would be so funny if you were like, dude, that's actually not the record. I thought we were on the same page. I was talking about something completely different.
no,
You're
no.
like, I really love the second chapter of Dracula or Frankenstein,
Yeah.
the
Oh
national
God.
record.
No,
You're
no.
like, I really loved it.
We're gonna go to sleep if we bring up that record. I'm
One
excited
of,
for our worst albums of the year at the
I
end
was
of the
gonna
year.
say,
That'll be
what?
fun.
Oh, okay, we're gonna do a worst stuff. We usually don't do that around these parts.
Well, I am.
We don't like to we don't like to shit on the movies and TV and such that we don't like, but they just kind of come up organically. But we can do a worst of,
Yeah.
and you and I as struggling indie musicians can shit on our betters. We can
Look, we're
definitely
just
do that. I would totally
sometimes
be down to do
we
that.
cover so much positive stuff. You got to sharpen that sword sometimes. But
That's a good thought. Okay, yes, please talk about Clark. Please talk about Clark.
yeah, Clark. This one came out of left field for me, not because of it being a Clark record. I've been a fan of him since Winter Limb. But it came out of left field because he's singing on it and he's used his own voice for vocal production and sampling before. If you're not familiar with him, he's a very textured, layered, wintry sounding producer from the UK who's had a lot of critical acclaim over the years. I wouldn't say any necessarily commercial breakthrough, but definitely in the right circles is considered just one of the most textured and polished producers out there. His album Body Riddle, especially the song Night Knuckles, is like one of my favorite electronic like combos of all time. But under the executive production and help of one Mr. Tom York for this record, he started experimenting with his voice more as a narrative and melodic instrument. And turns out he's got this gorgeous tenor this whole time.
Turns out one might say you can't tell where his voice begins and Tom York's ends
It's
because
very similar.
it is basically like, like two brothers just palling around in the same vocal range where I'm like, I don't know who's singing right now. Some of these tracks I'm genuinely like, I know he did backing on some of this, but I'm like, I don't know who that is right now. They're definitely in the neighborhood, and it's like that's I don't know. In some circles, to me, that's like kind of the highest compliment you can get. As like, hey, I decided to start singing. Turns out, kind of sound like Tom York. Like, oh, good for
Exactly.
you. Really good for you, buddy. That's fantastic. Really happy
Exactly.
for you.
Uh, I think that's what's so exciting about this that I was not expecting is, usually when we say someone's like going pop or turning pop, it's not a compliment, but it turned out that having over a decade of making incredible electronic music made it so that when he did go art pop, he knew exactly what he wanted to do, where to place his voice. Town Crank, which is the second song, one of the lead singles, is maybe my favorite song of the year, precisely because it has this combination of incredible vocal pop hooks, but still has this like bone shaking drop in
Dude.
the middle of
Oh
it.
my
And it
God.
sounds completely natural because he's so good at doing the electronic part that sort of weaving this pop element into the EDM, IDM, whatever you want to call it, just became very easy for him. He was able to produce things that fit his and Tom's voice so well. And so, yeah, it's an electronic artist making an art pop album in the best possible way of both worlds.
Yeah. It's it's really something special. I agree with you. Town Crank definitely up there. Medicine, which is one where Tom is like actually credited as like, hey, I have like a big section on here, but I'm like, you're all over the record. It seems arbitrary, but whatever. Um, anyways, and to that note, sorry, we'll get to
Yeah.
singles in a minute.
Yeah. I was going to say, as an
Clut,
electronic producer yourself, like, what did you take away from the album? Because I'm a vocalist first and foremost.
I mean, just a lot of jealousy and rage over not knowing like how do you do that? I don't know how you do that. How do you get that to sound like that? Um, just a lot of that. It's pretty much like when I listen to Tobacco and I'm just like, dude, how do you get the how do you get that going? How do you like, a lot of that.
Amazing.
Uh yeah, and uh, yes, again, to be completely honest with you, a lot of like just sheer jealousy over like, dude, you decided to start singing and it sounds that fucking good. And I'm not hearing like a ridiculous amount of effects on that vocal. You know what I'm saying? that was the most surprising to me, I guess, is I thought it was going to be more experimental in that vein, but it's real, it's just gorgeous. Like it's not, uh and like you said, using his vocal as an instrument, which is something I've actually been playing around with recently, which is literally taking vocal filters, applying them to uh kit instruments like on a drum, and then like speak singing into my microphone to get weird uh effects and see what that produces or whatever. I don't know, dude. I've been doing weird shit because I'm in that stage right now where it's just like I don't know, man. Let's go really weird and experimental and see if we
And
can
that's what I was expecting. You
have
brought up
that.
Tobacco, who modulates his voice like crazy so
Yes,
that there's almost no human behind it, which is really interesting. And Clark went the complete opposite way. There are harmonies on here that I expect off of Fleet Fox's record. Like,
for sure.
it's incredible. Him and Tom, whoever is writing the harmonies, like massive credit for making these sorts of like melodic ideas that are very far away from what I think you and I would think of what an electronic producer might do to their voice. Instead, it's very warm, it's very tactile, and they're making it very human, which Clark often has pushed away that side in his music.
Yes, and the more human elements of it are almost what lull you into like this false sense of security, so that when you do have those kind of jarring drops, or when like you have these tempo changes that come out of fucking like left field, they're like that much more assaultive in effect. So I was listening to some Boards of Canada on the ride home from work, and I was just like, it's just good to remind yourself every once in a while. I'm like, dude, the closer, was it Happy Cycling? I think the
Mm-hmm.
closer on
I think
Music Has a
so.
Right to Children.
Yeah.
It's like it's 6 minutes of the same drum loop, and it bare like, and then just some light loops over top of that, and then only in the last like minute or two does it kind of like get where it's going, or like do a big change or whatever. And I'm like, just it's good to remind yourself every once in a while that it's like, dude, the repetition is there for a reason. It's
Yeah.
like the setup and payoff of taking something that's just like, okay, I like this is a groove, this is a whatever, but like there's that, these subtle things that creep in there, and then just like boom, dropping it. It's so I'm sorry, it's so weird. I'm sitting here talking with my hands or whatever. And I'm like, this is why I can't do music journalism. I can't articulate like, when the thing does the thing, you're like you're here and then you're there.
but but
It's a lot
but
of that.
it's a good point, because I almost want to see more artists take this kind of Clark route, because he knows how repetition works. You know what I mean? He's obviously a Boards of Canada devotee, like most modern electronic artists are, and he's completely comfortable doing repetition within this pop record, where I think a traditionally mixed, produced, or written pop record is like the only repetition we're doing is the hook. Just blast the hook, blast the hook. And Clark feels so calm and being like, no, we can
It's
just let this play out.
assured. That's the word I've been
Yes.
struggling for this whole time. It is one of the
Yes.
most assured, just like I've been visualizing and thinking about like when I do take this next step in my career, or like, and that's the other thing is I'm like, it is this a whole new mode going forward, or is it
Mm-hmm.
like this is what I wanted to do for this project, and like now I'm gonna go back to like my normal, has he has he found a new tool that he's going to basically use going forward, and this will be his new identity? Or
Yeah.
will it be like, oh, every once in a while I sing,
Yeah.
more casually so. Whereas this one felt very purposeful of like, I feel, and I haven't done like a side by side, like actually reading the lyrics, but I feel like there's some references to finding your voice, or
Yes.
in the lyrical content, at least some of what I picked up in the first couple times through.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because I think I read On Town Crank, which we mentioned. He says, "I don't need to know what you mean."
Hmm.
But like, I think from what I've read, he's talking to a partner of like, sometimes you say so much more without saying anything, and I'm here
Absolutely.
for you.
Operating more off of mood and like
But
intuition.
it's
Yeah.
really funny coming from the listener's perspective.
Yeah.
I don't need to know what you mean. Yeah, I'm absolutely, Clark. I don't, because it's so beautiful.
Exactly. It was just like it's just vibes, man. Just fucking vibes. Yeah,
So
sus.
yeah, what are we looking forward to is our next?
Forward to if you have stuff on your radar. And then I also, we can shout out some singles while we're still in the neighborhood. Have you
Mhm.
listened to Bending Hectic yet? The latest drop from The Smile.
No, I've not. That is on. I got a road trip this weekend, and I'm playing a house show in Houston. So I've got some things queued up.
It's I mean, you'll go on your own little journey with it. It's 8 minutes long, and
Excellent.
it vacillates between basically kind of the three levels of Radiohead. The ambient side, and then you got the very jazz drum and bass, like just chill groovy side. And then by the time you get to the third act of this song, it is like, oh yeah, remember when we used to fucking throw down and just you remember distortion, dude? Remember distortion? Um, it's fucking great. I really, really like it a lot. But more importantly, while we're still in the electronic neighborhood, do you know who released a new single?
Oh, Aphex Twin. Yes.
Have you listened to it yet? Oh
Yes, I
shit.
really like.
Oh shit. And he changed his Spotify uh
Right,
picture
live right now, figuring out what the
as
hell he's
of
up
today.
to.
So I hope that means EP. That's I just want to throw that out there. I hope that means EP at the very least. Maybe album. We haven't had a proper album since 2014.
Yeah, Syro. Been a
Oh
while.
man. Yeah, I mean, I the Collapse EP was I I mean, you've heard me basically do my bullshit attempt at like, I want those drums. How do you make a drum? How do you make a drum machine sound that sounds like it's 25 to 30 different drum machines all competing with each other at the same time, and yet it works? That's what I don't understand. Is like, how do you do that? Um, but yeah, Black Box Life Recorder 21F
I
from
love his
Aphex
naming
Twin.
I love his naming conventions.
I
And
mean,
that's at the very least, I like the song, but that's my album art of the year. I love that. I
so
love whatever that
fucking
is.
cool, dude. Yeah, basically, I mean that aesthetic weirdly, I saw The Flash. I wasn't excited about it. I felt like it was more like it's for my job, but it's not my
Yeah.
job, you know? It's literally something that's self-imposed. It's like you have a podcast, you don't have to talk about it, but like I have to talk about it, whatever. So many of the visual effects that some people have been maligning in the movie, they literally look like the T69 collapse video, like with all the, but in a good. So I'm like, dude, this looks fucking awesome. I was like, yes, this looks like it's like AI having diarrhea, but like whatever, like it's a choice. Like
Yeah.
they clearly want it to look like this. Uh, but yes, that aesthetic of like, it's like, what's the next stage beyond vaporwave? Like,
Mall
yeah,
core. I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
that's what I'm saying. What's beyond that? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it's a distinctly it's a 2000s thing. It's not a 90s thing. It's not vaporwave. It's beyond that. But the collapsing textures and like I don't know. Whatever that I forget the name of his collaborator that does a lot of the visuals for him, which apparently is just a dude who was like, "Hey, I really like your music. I also do this weird shit. Can we find a way to like put these two things together?" And I'm like, yes, I love it. I'm sorry, but yeah, that dropped like out of nowhere. I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
like, and I knew he was playing live, and there's like he's doing a few more dates before the end of the year, but I truly didn't expect anything other than some poorly shot fan videos from those venues that I pour over whenever they're available. Uh, but yeah, dude, oh my God, that I listened to that last night like 3 or 4 times on a loop.
Oh yeah.
I fucking love it. It's really good. And then this morning on the ride to work, I got one more, and then I'll shut
Mhm.
up if you have any singles you want to shout out. I think it's just one-time single collab. I don't know if it's a Beck song or a Phoenix song, but
Yeah, yeah.
Odyssey. Did you listen to this?
I have not yet. That's on the list for this
Just
weekend.
I mean, just a fun little pop record. But yeah, I don't know if it's a one-off. I don't know if it's gonna be on Beck's next record or Phoenix's or vice versa or what. But it was fun. It was good
So I have a couple of shout outs that are mostly like albums that just dropped, but I have not had enough time to be
to
with, and I
digest.
mostly know the
Copy.
singles. The first one is most obvious in terms of just dropped. Siguros just dropped a record. Yeah. Oh, did you not know?
No, I did not. This is not a visual medium. People can't see me
Just shaking
undulating
in
my
the
body,
background.
just like
Well, it
what?
was out of nowhere. They dropped a single which I'm not going to even try to attempt to pronounce because it's
No, do it.
Icelandic.
No, please do
Or
it.
no, absolutely not. And then immediately dropped a record like 2 days after it, and I've not
Oh
had
my
time to listen
God.
to it yet.
Oh
Um,
wow. I
but
had
I
no
enjoyed the
idea.
single a lot. It's very ambient chamber-ish. I think their record Voltari is kind of unnecessarily maligned. I really like that record. And it reminded me a lot of Voltari. So I've not had time to dive into the full record, but the single is great. You were talking about Miss Canada of sad pop songs. There's a British French version of that called This Is the Kit, which just released a record.
Uh,
Um,
you're in good company, Mr. Jason Mantzoukas, one of the funniest comedians out there, on the How Did This Get Made podcast. He always does record recommendations, and this is his album of the year. So yes, you're in very
I've
good
not had
company
enough
here.
time with it, but I know it will be up there for me. But the single Inside Outside, little feistian, you know.
Okay.
And the I know this one will be on my end of the year lists. Jess Williamson, who's a country singer, just put out a record, but the single Stampede is one of the saddest songs I've heard in a while about a breakup. And the whole record is really hitting that sad, horny category.
Okay.
Like, damn, like maxed out on the X and Y axis of sad to horny
Okay.
ratio. It's great. And then the last one is the most left field, but I have to shout them out. I think they're Yala Miku, which is YALLAMIKU. They are North African French post punk band with Arabic influences on the post punk stuff, and it
Of
works.
course. Of course.
It
Because
works.
why wouldn't you?
It works.
I
Those
I
are
love how
also
tapped in you are, dude. I'm just like straight up like three albums I've never fucking heard.
yeah.
I love it.
But those are basically, kind of going on what you're saying that like I've had tastes of all these records or I've listened to a couple of times, but I've not cracked them yet, especially the new Sikaros because it's so new. But all of those are like if they had been released a little earlier, might have been battling with Billy Woods and the Helsinki Jazz Orchestra for what I would have recommended. So I'll just put those out, and those specific we'll link to specific songs off of each of
Yeah,
them.
I'll
So
get your
hopefully
full
those act
list.
as good hooks,
Yeah,
into
dude.
those records.
I swear, dude. Sometimes it's just in the ether. Like I went and saw the new Wes Anderson, Asteroid City,
Mm-hmm.
last night, and it's building towards the climax, and I'm just thinking about other like previous Wes Anderson climaxes where I'm like, okay, is he gonna get me there like emotionally? I'm like, I basically start at an eight with he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I basically start at an eight. It's just like, are you gonna tip over to a 10 or are you gonna stay at like a nine? And it's basically does it land for me emotionally? And I'm thinking back to like, dude, literally like the end of Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, like he drops on a Sigur Rós track as they're
Yep.
like looking at the Jaguar shark, and it's just like it's like a cheat code. It's like it's not even fair because if you weren't emotionally invested already, it's just like you do that music cue with those visuals and you're gonna cry. Like if
Yeah.
you're a normal human person. And so they were in my head, and part of me I was just like, dude, I haven't listened to Sigur Rós in forever. I should definitely do that. And then the thought flew away. And then today you're like, oh, by the way, they have a new full length record. I'm like, okay. So dude, I've got my work cut out for me for the rest of the
Yeah.
weekend. So
It's we both do. I got to catch up on some of this stuff. I got to listen to Michael, as you were saying, and this it's been an
I
exciting year
also
for music.
If I can throw one out at you, because I don't know that we've ever discussed them before, but given that you were at a an experimental metal
Yeah.
show festival, have we discussed Oh Brother at all?
No.
Okay, they are from Georgia. They were part of Manchester Orchestra's label initially, and they were the outliers in terms of like we always kind of knew, oh, they're gonna go on to some other label because they're just fucking they're heavy as shit and they just don't quite fit in with everybody, but in a good way. Uh they've been on kind of a weird indefinite hiatus as far as I know, but they have some great records. I would like for you to listen to Garden Window and
Okay.
just
Writing down.
give it a shot. Yeah, no, we're gonna trade lists through text after this because I need you to send everything that we just talked about so I can actually add it to the playlist. I think I managed to get like 3 or 4 tracks in the midst of
Yeah.
that, but yeah, as always, thank you so much for doing this, sir. So you definitely want to come back to do worst of the year. I think that could be very exciting. We obviously got to do best of. But oh, excuse me. Records that you're do you have any that you're excited for that we know are coming? I don't think we got to that.
No, the ones right now, thankfully I'm pretty locked in on the records I just mentioned of like having just literally just come out and going around there. I don't think there's any off the top of my head that I'm like, oh, that's interesting that this like single came out. I wonder if the record's going to be any good. But part of that may be that unlike usual weeks where I'm really trawling through to see what the next couple of weeks will be like looking like, I was so heat exhausted and Tim Heckered out
Yeah,
that I just did not do that prep. So I've got some stuff to listen to, but it's already out. So,
gotcha.
but how about you?
No, I was gonna say same. I was hoping you were like, oh, I
Yeah.
know this is coming. As always, and just because I don't know, it's still in the back of my head because they're on tour right now, but we got the King of Sweden single like a year ago. There's got to be a Future Islands record like right around the corner. At the pace that
Mhm.
they normally work at, I'm possibly expecting that. But yeah, no, now I'm just holding out hope that we get an Aphex record before the year's over.
Yeah.
That's because that came completely out of left field. So
Yeah,
I
I
look forward to
agree.
that. As far as one more single that I will shout out randomly just because we brought him up earlier. Um post Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick Lamar seems to be having a little bit of fun again.
Oh yeah.
The Baby Keem collab, the Hillbillies, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And
I
they sampled
appreciate that Kendrick seems to be having fun.
yes, and they sample Bon Iver is the most like relaxed and chilled out and just confident I've heard him sound in a little while, which was very a fun, nice change of pace from the
Yeah,
dramatics of that record, which I thought were
absolutely.
very effective. But it's nice to get a little backseat freestyle energy every once in a while. I
Yes.
always like to get back to that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be dour all the time. And after Miss
Yes.
Morale, I'm like, is he okay? Like,
Yeah. You're like, hey, well, hopefully that was cathartic, and now let's have some fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the I she's not a go-to for me. Sorry. Now the stands are really going to come after me, but the America Has a Problem with Beyonce. It's like I don't stay tapped into everything she's doing, but I did listen to it because he's on there. I like his verse. That was cool. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, that was it. I just wanted to shout out Kent
Right.
some
Yeah, yeah,
positive
yeah.
vibes to the recent Kendrick stuff. Okay. I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
We definitely won't wait till the end of the year. We'll find an excuse to have you on again soon. You got any festivals coming up?
I'm gonna be avoiding ACL. Just, like not to be the cranky, I'm not an Austin native, like someone
Hmm.
would like absolutely flay me alive for claiming that. But living in Austin during ACL can be a little weird. And there were not, if you like took out from the 2 weekends like a certain amount of artists, I would go, but for the money, that you
Hmm.
need to go is just not enough, really. So the next thing would be Levitation Fest, probably, which is almost like Terror Fest. Oblivion Accesses like flip coin, like on the other side of the coin, like twin, and that usually
Hmm.
happens in November. No releases yet on who's going to do that though, so I'm just chilling.
Word.
We could come back in for the next quarter review, or if we both see some good shows, obviously.
Oh,
uh
absolutely.
yeah.
I will be seeing Killer Mike live here in Charleston for sure.
Nice.
And then if I don't know if I can, uh, I don't know if I can twist somebody's arm and get a ticket for the Smile. They are coming here, but I think it's been sold out for quite a while. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely seeing Killer Mike at the Charleston Theater. That'll be a lot of fun, and see what else is on my radar. But yeah, until next time, please tell everybody where they can find you, hear you, listen to you, all that good stuff. Plug the 2010s, and what are you working on currently for the old National Public Radio organization?
Yeah, I am at the 2010s.net is the website. You can search me on the 2010s on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts for various interviews. We got some more coming out pretty soon. Conic Rose, who I mentioned, who are a great Berlin jazz group. I'm about to release an interview with them. I released an interview with Nuria Graham, who's an amazing Irish Catalan songwriter I met during South by Southwest, and Arbor Labor Union, who's kind of a country punk band out of Atlanta, who were just the most delightful people. Those interviews are either out or going to be out. And then for National Public Radio, the reason why it took so long for us to get this is because they said I was going to have a 6-month probationary period before I really got into the work. And then a month and a half in, I hosted Morning Edition for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm so tired. No, I'm so
I
tired.
bet, man. Oh my God. All right. Well, congratulations on your new job. I hope it's worth it. Enjoy
It
your
is.
lack of
It
sleep.
totally is. I'm just so tired all the time.
Oh man, I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the date? It's Friday. I'm gonna try and get this up today. It's June 23rd. I have a new EP because I can't help myself.
Woo!
Comes out on this coming Friday. It's called Sonari. Uh, and yeah, just a little six track EP. Just a little fun time. And then on the horizon in July, so begins the summer of synthwave. I'm going to be taking you guys
Yay!
on an intergalactic journey across the cosmos with the Space Driver saga. So it's going to be a couple EPs throughout July and August, and then September 1st, you get the Space Driver saga, which is basically this synthwave spectacular that I've been working on that's heavily influenced by my brother because he loves that shit. And so I basically made a whole like series of records just for him. But people still listen to it, hopefully. You know, I hope we haven't completely crossed the 80s nostalgia Rubicon. I feel like we're coming up on like 2000s nostalgia already. But anyways,
Yeah,
if you want
be
those thick toms and those those luscious scents, man, I got them coming for you. It's the summer of synthwave. nARK, lowercase n, capital ARK. Go check me out on all the normal services, and I don't know why you didn't plug yourself, so I'll do it. Nathan's Nathan goes by Micajah, which please spell it for everybody.
Micajah, and I played my second show since breaking my wrist.
I did. I saw that.
My wrist doesn't hurt anymore.
That's great, man. That's awesome. Well, now, whenever you get some sleep and get a break from NPR, I gotta get you to lay down some sweet licks and some vocals, and we're gonna start collabing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So appreciate it, man. Let's do it again.
Thank
soon.
you for having me. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you once again to the incomparable Nathan Stevens, our man in Texas. Until next time, I have been Noah, and this has been the ARK of E podcast. Thank you for listening. Okay, stop recording
on my end, and I'll send this over to you.